What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I'm your host, Pat Deneen, and this is my review of Night 1 of the WWE Draft. I pretty much broke even. When it comes to SmackDown, I was 4-4. When it came to Monday Night Raw, I was technically 4-3-1. You know, Kiana James, I did not have her listed as coming up from NXT. Glad she did make it to the main roster, though. I've been a very big fan of her the last couple of years in NXT. Former NXT Women's Tag Team Champion. She got close to winning some singles gold a couple of times, but did not get that, did not achieve that. But that's okay. We've seen many women in NXT who didn't win singles gold that were very successful on the main roster. A couple that come to mind initially, certainly Alexa Bliss, Carmella, and many others. Even Bianca Belair. She was never the NXT Women's Champion, and thought she was going to beat Shayna Baszler on a couple of occasions. Did not happen. But she's had an awesome career on the main roster in the last 3.5 years. So let's jump right into things here. Round 1, we saw Cody Rhodes make his way out, and he announced the first 2 draft picks for Friday Night SmackDown, and that is the very first pick of the draft, speaking of Bianca Belair, was the EST of WWE. Bianca Belair remaining on the blue brand, and the second pick for SmackDown was Carmelo Hayes, also the first ever NXT call-up to be announced in the first round, so that's huge. He made his way out very brash, very bold, and challenged the WWE Champion Cody Rhodes to a match later in the night, which would take place in the main event. Fantastic match, of course. Cody retained, but many big things on the horizon for Carmelo Hayes. I mean, we saw him the last couple of years, right off the bat, winning the NXT Breakout Tournament, I believe, in 2021, a 2-time NXT North American Champion, former NXT Champion, put on tons of great matches, so obviously, on his very first night, getting an opportunity against the WWE Champion. A lot of good things in store for him. So those were the first 2 picks for SmackDown announced by Cody Rhodes. Now going over to round 1 for Monday Night Raw, Triple H announced both of those. The first pick for Monday Night Raw was main event Jey Uso, who will remain on the red brand, as well as Seth freaking Rollins. So 2 members already of Monday Night Raw remaining there. Now for round 2 for SmackDown, we have Michelle McCool made her way out, and she announced that the Viper Randy Orton will also remain on SmackDown, and that Nia Jax would be making her way over from Monday Night Raw to SmackDown, which is one that I finally had gotten right on the SmackDown side of things. Having her come over to Raw, I thought that'd be a nice change of scenery for her. She's done a fantastic job, as I mentioned on the last podcast, since she returned to WWE a year and change ago. It's been about a year and a half or so, and she's done a fantastic job. Jumping over to round 2 for Monday Night Raw, Tori Wilson announced that Bron Breakker would be making his way over to Monday Night Raw, which was kind of surprising to me. I had it the opposite way with the 2 NXT guys. I thought Carmelo Hayes would be making his way over to Monday Night Raw, Monday Night Mello. He already had a great nickname lined up as far as I was concerned, but Bron Breakker making his way to Raw, I mean, I don't hate it, but it's kind of odd because he was just brought up and signed to SmackDown not even 2 months ago after a much debate. Adam Pearce, the Raw GM, and of course Nick Aldis, the SmackDown GM, week after week, going after the likes of Bron Breakker and Jade Cargill. And so initially Bron and Jade made their way to SmackDown. And so Bron is now a member of Monday Night Raw. Again, Mello on SmackDown, and so be it. That's what we're looking at. The second pick for round 2, of course, was Liv Morgan, who I also thought would remain on Monday Night Raw, and that's exactly what took place. So she's got a lot of unfinished business with certain women, as I mentioned again on the last podcast, certain title opportunities that she thinks she should have. And, you know, damn right, she's came up many times so close, whether it's the Elimination Chamber, the last couple of Royal Rumbles, even this most recent Battle Royale last week between her and Becky Lynch, where Becky got the upper hand and became the new Women's World Champion. So, again, Liv's going to go up against the likes of Becky, possibly dethroning her. Rhea comes back. They'll have a title match. They have a lot of unfinished business. They both injured one another in the last year, so that's a lot of good things coming Liv Morgan's way. A lot of great matchups on Monday Night Raw. Now we're making our way over to round 3, where Bubba Ray Dudley made his way out. He announced that LA Knight and the Bloodline, all 3 members, Solo Sikoa, Tama Tonga, and Paul Heyman, would remain on SmackDown, and that's pretty much how I saw it too. Now, the interesting thing that I forgot to mention at the start of this show was, at the very beginning of SmackDown, we come to find out that Roman Reigns withdrew from the 2024 WWE Draft, says his special counsel Paul Heyman, and so he's basically eligible to come to Raw or SmackDown whenever he shall return. Maybe he'll bounce between both for a little bit. I initially suggested that he would probably make his way over from SmackDown to Raw. Jey Uso already drafted to Raw and remaining there. I fully intend to see Jimmy Uso drafted to Raw, where him and Jey will reunite sooner than later. Roman Reigns will be back in the fold. That's why I could see him going to Raw, where the old bloodline will eventually, sooner than later, cross paths with this brand new bloodline. We'll have the old versus the new, and it's going to be very, very interesting to see take place, whether it's sometime this summer, whether it is leading up to War Games Survivor Series in November. It's going to be very, very enjoyable. It's going to be a lot of fun, to say the least. So those were the two picks for SmackDown, Round 3, LA Knight and the Bloodline. And the other member of the Dudley Boys, where we had Devon Dudley make his way out. I love the fact that they both put on their Dudley Boy glasses to announce who was being drafted and selected here. So Devon announced that Ricochet would be remaining on Monday Night Raw, which, again, I saw happening, especially with his significant other there, the ring announcer, Samantha Irvin, who does a fantastic job, and also Sheamus, who recently came back a couple of weeks ago. And, I had Sheamus going to SmackDown, but it makes a whole lot of sense that he's on Raw. He just returned. He's got something going on with Drew McIntyre, which I assume Drew McIntyre will also remain on Raw as well. So we'll see what happens there, but that was round 3. And all we had was one more round left. Again, going into this, I know I mentioned we had 4 rounds with 16 people being selected, and then they did some drafting after the show immediately online and stuff, where I'll get to that in a minute. But at the same time, I definitely doubled my picks, and so that's why if you listen to the preview episode, I had so many more options, but now I got it right for Raw and going forward. So round 4 for SmackDown, Teddy Long announced that AJ Styles would be remaining on SmackDown, and Andrade would be making his way over from Monday Night Raw, which I also saw coming to SmackDown. And again, I fully intend to see Charlotte Flair, his wife, make her way over whenever she is set to return. She's doing great. She's only been out, 3 months now. She's always posting on social media her rehab with her knee injury, and so she looks like she's coming along very, very good. And so now for the final round and the final picks announced by JBL, he let us know that the Alpha Academy, all 4 members would be remaining on Raw. That's Chad Gable, Otis, Akira Tozawa, and Maxine Dupree. And then last but certainly not least, Kiana James made her way up from NXT. Incredibly happy for her. I was considering her for Monday night's draft coming up. Again, a former NXT Tag Team Champion. And I think she'll have success. She's gritty. She could wrestle. I thought she was going to have a little more time in NXT, but that's fine. So the only NXT call-ups from that night were technically Carmelo Hayes and Kiana James, being that Bron Breakker was already a member of the Friday Night SmackDown roster for the last couple of months. And so, there was only 8 brand changes overall, and that's including the picks I'm also about to announce. Only 8 brand changes overall out of the 23 selections that took place during the show and after the show. We saw 3 changes realistically during the show. Nia Jax and Andrade making their way over from Raw, and Carmelo Hayes being the first official call-up from NXT. That was actually just exclusively for SmackDown. And again, only 2 changes for Raw, which was Breakker and Kiana James. So let's get to the people who were mentioned afterwards. Sean Ross Sapp immediately posted after SmackDown concluded. He said, as far as SmackDown's pool was concerned, those that remain undrafted are Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, Cedric Alexander and Ashante the Adonis, Ivar of the Viking Raiders, Shayna Baszler, the OCs, Good Brothers and Mia Yim, and Zoe Stark. So the way that played out, they posted graphics on their socials. Baron Corbin making his way up from NXT back to the main roster on SmackDown. Then we have the OC being drafted as a whole. We have the Good Brothers, Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson, and Mia Yim. Again, they'll be remaining on the blue brand. I thought we were going to see a change of scenery for them on Raw, but we got to change of scenery for this next tag team here. Not only did they remain together, Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, but they're heading to Monday Night Raw from Friday Night SmackDown. And here we had Cedric Alexander and Ashante the Adonis, this new duo. We saw a video package for them many months ago, but we really haven't seen them in action on Raw or SmackDown. So they'll be on SmackDown now. I'm pretty sure Ashante the Adonis was already on SmackDown. We just haven't seen him in many months since Hit Row broke up back in September. Top Dollar was released. B-Fab was eventually put with Lashley and the Street Profits, which I'm very happy for her. And so they're keeping these two as a duo. I believe Cedric's making his way over from Monday Night Raw. And so we'll see what happens. Hopefully, we don't see what we saw this past Friday on SmackDown, where Bron Breakker came out and squashed Cedric in a matter of seconds with a vicious spear when Cedric was coming off the ropes for the 1-2-3. So hopefully we don't see him booked like that anymore going forward, and we see them have some success in the tag team, because they're both very good. They really are. Also, we had Ivar, who is going to remain on Monday Night Raw. He's done a fantastic job in this singles run ever since his tag partner Eric went down many months ago with an injury. So let's continue to see him in a singles capacity. He's actually going to be on night 2 of NXT Spring Break-In on Tuesday night. So I believe he's going up against Oba Femi, the current NXT North American champion, for the gold. And they're also going to keep Shayna Baszler on Monday Night Raw. So again, not a whole lot has changed. Zoe Stark also going to remain on Raw, so I'm going to assume that they're going to keep Baszler and Stark as a tag team, as they've been together for a couple of months now. They make a very good tag team. They really do. I don't know if they're ever going to go ahead and put the tag titles on them. I think, after Bianca and Jade have a great run after they defeat the Kabuki Warriors this weekend, maybe we could eventually see a team like that dethrone them many months from now, maybe over the summer or something. Definitely a formidable duo, that's for sure. And so that was it. You just had those few picks there. Again, Corbin to SmackDown, OC to SmackDown, Alba Fire, Isla Dawn to Raw, Cedric and Ashante to SmackDown, Ivar, Raw, Shayna and Zoe remaining on Monday Night Raw. Again, not a lot of changes, so it kind of made the draft boring. There wasn't a whole lot of movement, although we got some notables. It's always great to see Carmelo Hayes make his way up, and I was glad to see the EST of WWE, seeing a female wrestler drafted first in the draft. That was huge. Stuff like that was exciting, but the rest of it was pretty much lackluster for the most part. So hopefully we get a lot more movement. I'm sure we will on Raw. Again, we have 2 additional rounds. There will be more picks, a lot more back and forth. I'm sure we'll see some more NXT call-ups and so on. But they did a great job as far as presentation was concerned. I was very happy with that. Raw and SmackDown were backstage in their respective rooms. Adam Pearce with his guys and gals, Nick Aldis with his guys and gals. We had Jackie Redmond live in Orlando, Florida, where NXT is held, with all the superstars sitting there in the ring, around the ring, and waiting anxiously to see if any of them were going to get drafted. Carmelo Hayes was in the building at SmackDown on Friday, of course, challenging Cody to that match. But it was cool to see Kiana James get drafted, wearing her Monday Night Raw hat. Everybody so happy for her. And it was noted after the fact that she did not know. Nobody there knew if they were going to get drafted or not. So hopefully we see a lot more of that on Raw. Maybe a couple guys and gals getting drafted. It was very exciting. That, to me, was the best part of it. It was kind of like seeing somebody from college getting drafted to the pros. That's exactly how it felt. And so I love that. I love that for them. I love that for the fans. It's a very exciting time. And that's what makes the draft good, because it's lacked stuff like that for many years. So that's pretty much it. That sums up everything as far as night 1 of the WWE draft was concerned. And we got a couple matches on Friday scheduled for Backlash this Saturday. Again, it's going to be 1 p.m. here in the States, Eastern Standard Time. And Backlash live from France. We got to come and find out that not only was Cody Rhodes versus AJ Styles made official, but we also have a big matchup, a big tag team matchup, where Solo Sikoa and Tama Tonga will be going up against Kevin Owens and Randy Orton. They also made the women's tag team match official, where we're going to see Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill go after the Kabuki Warriors, and like I said early on, will likely be the new WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. Then, of course, we got a triple threat match for Bayley's WWE Women's Championship, being that Nia Jax made her way out later and interfered with Tiffany Stratton and Naomi's match. So now it's Bayley versus Tiffany versus Naomi. I'm sure that's going to be good. Early prediction, I do see Bayley retaining her title, that's for sure. And I think her and Tiffany are going to be going at it throughout the course of the summer. And yeah, so that's pretty much that. So as always, thank you again for tuning into the Turnbuckle Topics podcast. I'm your host, Pat Deneen, and be sure to look out for my preview video for WWE Draft Night 2 coming out very soon. And you're going to see who I think will be making their way to Raw, to SmackDown, potential NXT call-ups, and so on and so forth. And that's pretty much that. So thank you for your support as always. I'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening.